Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati meets President Joseph Aoun to discuss forming a new government. The UN warns of a deepening hunger crisis in Gaza due to shortages and looting. And Houthi media report Israeli, US, and British airstrikes on Sana'a and Hodeidah. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has met with President Joseph Aoun at Ba'abda Palace to discuss constitutional steps for forming a new government. Mikati confirmed that Aoun asked him to continue in a caretaker role until the new government is finalized. He stressed the importance of aligning the upcoming government with Aoun's parliamentary vision and reaffirmed calls for Israel's swift withdrawal from southern Lebanon, emphasizing plans to demilitarize areas south of the Litani River. Lebanese Finance Minister Youssef Al-Khalil has expressed optimism following the election of General Joseph Aoun as president, highlighting its potential to restore financial trust. Al-Khalil stressed the importance of public and institutional confidence to revive Lebanon's economy and called for key government reforms to attract Arab and foreign investments. While he acknowledged challenges such as declining exports and imports and the impact of the Syrian crisis, he noted improved international bonds as a positive sign post-election. The United Nations Security Council has welcomed the election of Joseph Aoun as Lebanon's president, ending a two-year leadership vacuum. The council highlighted the significance of this development in tackling Lebanon's political, economic, and security challenges. Members reaffirmed their support for Lebanon's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence, pledging ongoing commitment to the country's stability during this critical period. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has welcomed the election of Joseph Aoun as Lebanon's president, ending a two-year leadership vacuum. In a message to Aoun, Pezeshkian expressed confidence that strengthening stability and unity in Lebanon will thwart Israel's ambitions against Lebanese territory. Lebanon's national news agency has reported Israeli artillery strikes on the town of Ait al-Shab in the Bint Jbeil region. The agency also stated that Israeli soldiers attacked neighborhoods with assault weapons. Despite a ceasefire with Hezbollah in November, Israeli troops remain in southern Lebanon, continuing to demolish homes and infrastructure. Residents have been barred from returning to their homes, exacerbating the humanitarian situation in the region. After 2 years of political deadlock, Lebanon's parliament elected General Joseph Aoun as president, marking a fresh start and raising hopes for national stability and reform.
After a prolonged period of stagnation that paralyzed Lebanese politics, General Joseph Aoun was elected president by parliament, securing 99 out of 128 votes, ending a two-year political vacuum. In his inaugural address, President Aoun declared, "Let the world know a new chapter has begun," signaling a fresh start for the nation. The election of President Aoun, who previously served as the army commander, was facilitated by a domestic agreement aligning with international pressure. This consensus underscores the influential role of key political factions in Lebanon's governance. In his speech, President Aoun outlined a comprehensive rescue plan aimed at addressing Lebanon's multifaceted crisis. He emphasized the necessity of a national defense strategy, highlighting the state's exclusive right to bear arms and the importance of investing in the Lebanese armed forces to safeguard the nation's sovereignty. He also pledged to preside over reconstruction efforts and ensure the withdrawal of Israeli occupation forces from southern Lebanon. The international community responded positively to Aoun's election. Domestically, the election has been met with cautious optimism. Political analysts note that while the presidency has been filled, the new administration faces the formidable task of implementing reforms to revive the economy, combat corruption, and restore public trust in state institutions. The formation of a new government capable of enacting these reforms will be a critical next step. As Lebanon embarks on this new chapter under President Joseph Aoun's leadership, the nation and its citizens remain hopeful for a period of stability, effective governance, and progress. The coming days will be crucial in determining the trajectory of Lebanon's recovery and its re-engagement with the international community.
For more analysis, we now move to Mark in our newsroom.
Yes, thank you, Selma. For more on Lebanon, then, we are now joined from Cairo by Al Ahram newspaper managing editor Ashraf Abu al-Hul. Thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. So the Prime Minister, the caretaker Prime Minister, Najib Mikati, and the new President have met. Could you explain to us how important this relationship in the Lebanese system is between the President and the Prime Minister? And also, what will be their first steps together?
All greetings to you and to your viewers of Cairo TV. Simply, when a new president takes office, the first thing that the Prime Minister does would be to sit with the new president and to forward the Prime Minister's resignation or to declare if he wishes to continue in office or to step out. So the new president is consulted on this. So far, there is a willingness for assigning the post of the Prime Minister to a new person. This has been clear in the speech of Najib Mikati, who is the caretaker Prime Minister, because Najib Mikati till this point was not a popular Prime Minister, and he was assigned, when he was assigned by Michel Aoun, he did not get the approval of the parliament. And afterwards, Aoun left office as a president, and the parliament was suspended, and then the war erupted. So therefore, I believe that the new president of the republic in Lebanon might assign someone else to be the prime minister if there is no consensus in the parliament that Najib Mikati continues.
Okay, and you might have heard earlier in our bulletin we were talking about Youssef Al-Khalil, who is the finance minister, and he has spoken of his optimism at economic reforms. What kind of way might the new president go about trying to restore financial trust?
The Lebanese economy truly needs pouring a lot of blood into it, a lot of foreign direct investments, and before all, the Lebanese economy needs stability, needs to stabilize the conflict with Israel, and to make sure that the new president and the new government are controlling the situation, and to make sure that Lebanon will have only the weapons in the hands of the official Lebanese army. If all of these elements are there, there would be stability, and thus I believe there would be many countries willing to help Lebanon, and many have shown their readiness to help Lebanon and pour more investments into Lebanon. And actually, there is a lot of potential for Lebanon that was waiting for stability. Many of the cadres of Lebanon nationwide were waiting for stability in Lebanon to be helping their country. because Lebanon for months was close to full collapse.
Okay, so what challenges then would you say that Lebanon is facing when it comes to implementing reforms and also attracting foreign investments?
The first of these challenges for Lebanon, and even before speaking about reforms and investment and attracting investments from outside, the prime thing is to make sure of a full Israeli withdrawal from the south of Lebanon and to spread the Lebanese army there and to make all the weapons under the control of the Lebanese state and to form a new government. And this government should be capable of controlling all the elements of economy in the Lebanese state. And
continue.
There had been certain elements controlling some parts of the Lebanese economy. Hezbollah was controlling part of the Lebanese economy, including the ports, including some airports. And there were certain economic zones under the control of others. So if the state is controlling everything, this will revive the Lebanese economy and attract foreign investment.
So how significant is the United Nations support for Lebanon following the presidential election, and what role can it play in addressing the country's political, economic and security challenges?
For sure, the international community should be helping Lebanon. It should be helping restoring the Lebanese army control and to ensure armament of the Lebanese army so as it can face the internal and external challenges. There should be also investments and there should be also aid and grant as much as possible to Lebanon. It should be abundant so as to help Lebanon to rebuild its economy. Because as I said before, Lebanon was on the verge of bankruptcy, and even worse, the war on Israel over the last 15 months led to the destruction of a lot of infrastructure in Lebanon and destroying a lot of homes in Beirut, southern Beirut, and many places.
Well, let me ask you about that. We've touched on that a couple of times now, the situation with Israel, and despite that ceasefire in November, there has been continuing artillery strikes and troop activities in southern Lebanon. How will the new president deal with this situation, do you think?
His president is trying to emphasize that the Lebanese army will be spread in the south, will be replacing Hezbollah in the south, and thus assuring Israel and the United States about the situation. And thus Israel would accelerate its withdrawal from the Lebanese territories. Israel, according to the truce agreement, was supposed to be withdrawing from the south of the Litani River within 60 days. The 60 days, now we have finished some 2/3 of them. So it's only a matter of few days and the whole truce time is expired. It started on the 27th of November and it will be expiring and the withdrawal should be ended by the 27th of January. So the new Lebanese president should be moving closely with the army and with the international forces so as to pressure Israel to continue and fulfill its withdrawal in the due time.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for joining us here on Qnews. That was Ashraf Abu al-Hul, who is the managing editor of Al-Ahram newspaper. Thank you very much for joining us, and it's back to you, Salma.
Thank you so much, Mark, for this enriched analysis. And now we move on to the latest developments in Gaza. 4 Palestinians were killed today in Gaza as the Israeli military campaign enters its 16th month. Palestinian civil defense teams reported recovering 1 body and treating 2 injured individuals after Israeli forces struck near El Shefi Mosque, close to the Taiba Towers in western Khan Yunis, southern Gaza. The attack targeted a civilian area, further highlighting the ongoing crisis in the region. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has called for Pope Francis' statements on Gaza to be translated into concrete action. The ministry welcomed the pontiff's condemnation of Israeli aggression, his call for a ceasefire, and support for a two-state solution. It emphasized the urgent need for practical measures to address the escalating humanitarian crisis in Gaza, including widespread famine. The Gaza-based human rights organization El Mizan Center for Human Rights has said the detention without charge of Hossein Abu Safia, director of Gaza's Kamal Adwan Hospital, has been extended until February 13 by the Ashkelon Magistrates Court. The organization noted this marks the second such extension since his arrest. Abu Safia was also denied access to a lawyer until January 22nd. Abu Safia was arrested on December 27 during an Israeli raid on the medical facility in northern Gaza's Beit Lahia. He was later reported to be held at a military detention center where human rights organizations have documented systematic torture against Palestinians. The Israeli military has announced that 73 Palestinians were arrested in the occupied West Bank over the past week. The military also reported that several Palestinians were killed during operations in the territory. According to Palestinian sources, these arrests bring the total number of detentions in the West Bank since October 2023 to over 14,300, including individuals who were later released. The ongoing operations have intensified tensions in the region. The U.S. House of Representatives has voted to sanction the International Criminal Court in response to its arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a former defense minister over actions in Gaza. The Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act passed with a 243 to 140 vote, aiming to sanction any foreign entity involved in investigating, detaining, or prosecuting U.S. or allied citizens, including Israelis outside ICC jurisdiction. 45 Democrats joined 198 Republicans in supporting the bill, with no Republican opposition. Reports of alleged abuse and psychological harm to Palestinian detainees in Israeli prisons are drawing heightened scrutiny as international mediators intensify their efforts this month. According to the Detainees and Ex-Detainees Commission and the Palestinian Prisoner Society, over 11,000 Palestinians have been detained in the occupied West Bank since October 7. This figure includes individuals arrested from their homes at military checkpoints, those who surrendered under duress, and hostages taken during operations. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has reported a deepening hunger crisis in Gaza, driven by severe supply shortages, access restrictions, and violent looting. OCHA confirmed that humanitarian partners in central Gaza had run out of supply stocks by Sunday. Efforts to deliver food aid remain obstructed, with Israeli authorities blocking most requests to allow aid through a western checkpoint to southern areas of the Gaza Valley. The situation continues to escalate. The United Nations Children's Fund has reported that at least 74 children were killed in the Gaza Strip during the first 7 days of 2025 due to ongoing violence. UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Russell stated on X that 8 infants and newborns have died since December 26 from hypothermia, as over 1 million Gazan children endure harsh winter conditions in makeshift tents. Russell warned that inadequate shelter, poor nutrition, lack of health care, and cold weather pose severe risks, especially for newborns and vulnerable children. Moving on to Yemen, where Houthi-affiliated media has reported around 30 joint airstrikes by Israeli, American, and British forces targeting areas in Sana'a and Hodeidah, including the Haziz power station. That came as Israeli media confirmed this as the first coordinated strike between Israel and the U.S.-led coalition against Houthi targets in Yemen, part of Israel's strategy to counter Houthi influence in the region. And now we move on to the latest developments in Syria. Syrian Foreign Minister Asad al-Shibani has highlighted the importance of safeguarding Syrians' rights as essential to achieving national unity. During a joint press conference with his Italian counterpart, al-Shibani announced plans for a national dialogue conference to support an inclusive political transition. He also revealed plans to lead a high-level delegation on a European tour aimed at strengthening cooperation. Al-Shibani reaffirmed Syria's commitment to human rights and stability, aspiring to make the country a regional model. The Italian flag was raised above Italy's embassy in Damascus, marking its reopening after 12 years of closure. Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani, currently visiting Syria, attended the opening ceremony, signaling a renewed diplomatic presence in the region. Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani has reaffirmed Italy's support for the Syrian people and the country's territorial integrity. Speaking at a joint press conference with Syrian Foreign Minister Asad al-Shibani, Tajani stated that Europe is open to lifting sanctions and strengthening ties between Syria and the European Union. He emphasized the rights of Syrians to a dignified life and highlighted Italy's diplomatic presence in Damascus, calling for national unity and the return of displaced Syrians. Israeli media, citing officials, have reported that Israeli forces will maintain an operational presence extending 15 kilometers into Syrian territory. The officials emphasized Israel's intention to establish a 60-kilometer zone of influence within Syria, controlled by Israeli military intelligence. They stressed the importance of preserving a military presence in the region to safeguard Israel's security and counter potential threats. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we've been covering. Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati meets President Joseph Aoun to discuss forming a new government. The UN warns of a deepening hunger crisis in Gaza due to shortages and looting. And Houthi media report Israeli, US, and British airstrikes on Sana'a and Hodeidah. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.